This is a ridiculous question, but obviously this is a very serious movie. But I'm actually genuinely curious how much train riding you actually did. Did you actually have to go on trains? How much time were they filmed? Did you have train riding
We did
days?
a lot of, yeah, we had days on the train where we did lots of the exterior shots where I'm getting on and off the train. And I think the railway system just hated us, hated our production by the end. Yeah, and we hired like hundreds of extras to sit on these trains, and then we built the rig on set.
Oh, cool.
We built. I did not build it, but all right, fine. Yeah. I just hammered in some tracks. So that was we did the interior stuff on a stage where they had a train on a rig, and they'd sort of move it around, and people would feel a bit sick and. It's crazy.
I was just telling you that your husband came to DC and he was promoting the Hollers, and one thing he said to me in the interview was that this was probably one of the best things he's ever seen you do.
Oh,
and
wow.
then my fiance interviewed him later on in the day, and he said to her he didn't even recognize you as his wife.
Right.
And so that was the first time he's ever seen something like that.
Yeah.
So when you wrap a day and you go home, are you still carrying this character home with you?
No, I need to come in and out of it, especially with a character like this. It's not. I'm not one of these sort of tortured actors that has the character dwelling in me for the whole duration of the shoot. I also had a toddler at home who did not care about whether I had played an alcoholic well or not that day. And so, so no, I had a nice long car ride home, and I sort of meditate and let it go.
Now, obviously, in the book, she's training to London, which I think is interesting. But in the movie, you are British.
Sure.
But it's set in New York. So I'm just curious, the decision to keep your character British, and also when you keep your accent as your normal accent, is it easier to go emotionally where you went with this character?
I think so. I think I had to be completely uninhibited with this part, and it was one of those parts that required me to be sort of courageous and throw everything against the wall to see what would stick. And so to be restrained in any way by an accent that wasn't my own may have been harder for me. And so I offered to do it, but Tate kind of liked the director kind of liked the idea of her being as isolated as possible, and the accent added to that.
Now, this is a question I've always wanted to know, because there's a great shot in the movie, and it's also in the trailer, where you say, I'm afraid of myself. And in the shot, the tear literally roll. It's an amazing moment. I'm wondering, how do you get that to do that? How do you I know you're emotionally getting in that moment, but do you think about that? I don't know, is that a dumb question? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't think about let's get the tear to fall in the right moment. I think it's just luck,
Right.
if it happens, you're like, oh, that's cool, that's a cool shot. But I just think emotionally, you just have to go there. You just have to go there, and it's very intense, and some takes you're there more than others. For me, I think acting is an ultimate form of empathy. It's not that I associate my own life with, it's not that I necessarily draw from my own life. I have to literally put myself in her shoes.
Now, there's an amazing sequence when you're in front of this mirror, and it's to me, I think it's the best work you've ever done. It was just incredible watching you in that moment. And it's kind of similar to kind of what I just asked, is where do you go? Where do you go to get there? How do you find that place to break down like that?
It's a hard thing to talk about, because I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what happens. It's a rather ethereal thing. I can't describe it in any other way other than you just have to put yourself completely in this character's position at this moment in their life and be so specific about what they're feeling in this moment. And with those type of scenes, I never rehearse them. I just always say to Tate, I would always say to Tate, I don't know what I'm going to do, so just roll the camera, because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. And I don't think you can practice them. You can't sort of say, I'm going to stand here and then here. You can't conform them too much, because otherwise they lose the rawness and the spontaneity of it. So I'd say to the DP was like, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. And she went, I don't know either, so we'll find out together. And the DP and I, we just did this dance the whole film, it felt so spontaneous.
Like the camera was a character.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Emily, it was awesome to see you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to you. One thing I love about movies is that I didn't read the book for this, so you've read the script, you know where your character goes. I'm not going to spoil anything, but how do you not give away things in your mannerisms as the movie goes on? Are you very aware of what you're doing in every scene, not to give anything away?
Yes and no. I read the script prior to reading the book, so it had been given to me, just read this. So I was able to have sort of what I guess would ostensibly be a first viewing, or that was so I didn't know where anything was going, where it was heading, what the characters were doing. And when you read it like that, obviously there's no sort of tells in the script, So I was as shocked as anyone would be, to learn certain twists, that happen. So yeah, I basically, I got to take that ride only once, the first time I read it. And the doing of it, I think it's really, if you kind of honor the character and honor their truth, you just basically try and sort of figure out what their, what is their disorder that they could be this kind of person, or not disorder, what is their sort of dysfunction. And with him, I sort of thought it was like he was just a narcissist, like he was a guy who essentially appears to operate from the position of strength, but is really a kind of an emotional weakling, and feels put upon. And anything that is done to him, or anything that he does to anyone, he would blame them for him having to do that to them, And once I kind of found that kind of was the sort of the keyhole that I was able to sort of get into him by, and start enjoying the character. Because then if you, essentially are playing someone with no conscience, really, you're free to kind of just, be normal, I mean, he is essentially a normal guy. He's a suburban dad that, drives a Volvo, so that's how I just saw him from beginning to end.
You've worked with some of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And I look at David Lynch, I'm like, Mulholland Drive obviously is an absolute masterpiece.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm wondering, like, when you go on different sets, like Tate Taylor's a different director than David Lynch, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you utilize things from Lynch here? Like, do you pull things? I would love to see like Lynch's version of this or something. I would make a totally different version, but like, do you utilize things from someone like a Lynch here?
No, yes and no. I mean, dialogue is the thing. The story and the dialogue is always the thing that informs the tone of anything you do. So you always try and I always try and isolate what the tone of the thing is. But it's odd when you're actually shooting something. Like when you shoot a David Lynch movie, it's like being on the set of a comedy. I've had better times on David Lynch movies. I mean, just as far as like yucks, than I have on comedies I've worked on.
Wow.
Because David is a very light, bright guy. So, and it's always a shot. I've only done 2 films with him, but
Inland Empire too.
Yeah, but both times when I saw the finished product, I was always just stunned at how different the movie was to the experience of making it. And I think that's the mark of a really good director. When you go like, oh wow, this is totally different than I thought the film we were making. This is very different than the film we were making. And I think David kind of nurtures that on sets. Where he just says, like, hey, it's going to be like this, and it's fun, and blah blah blah, and then he goes back to the lab and makes his movie, and he knows what he's trying to get. We don't know. I mean, who could predict what David Lynch is going to make? And that goes for Girl on the Train too. Like I remember thinking like, oh, when I first read the script, I remember thinking, oh, there's a lot of night shoots, or this is going to be really dark, and we're going to be up a lot of nights, and blah blah. And then on the second read of it, I was like, oh my God, it's largely set in the daytime. Like it's a noon movie, it's and I thought, that's weird. I've never seen a thriller really shot in full bright sunlight. But then once I saw the film, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
It feels
very
dark.
Moody, feels dark.
Yeah.
It's like, it is daytime, but it's like it's on a dimmer. And that was a thrill too, to sort of see like, oh, Tate really, and again, you never know what you're gonna, because when they set up lighting and stuff, you're like, I don't know what we're setting it up. I mean, I know why we're setting it up, but I don't know what mood they're going for, because lights on a set look very different than lights, on a screen. So yeah, it was the same kind of thing where I was more than pleasantly surprised at the result.
There's a lot of scenes we see multiple times from different perspectives. So do you shoot the scene again, or do they have multiple cameras filming the same moment?
Oh, wow.
I think we had 2 cameras. I don't really.
Like when you're on the deck, like like we see the scene from her perspective, and then we come closer to you guys.
It was in different moments. It was separate.
Different moments.
That I
the
remember.
Moment
Yeah,
from the train, and the moment, which is where where all her blunders start stemming from, was that scene.
Do you have to rewatch your old movements to get it exact to the motion?
Yes.
That's interesting.
They showed us. I think they showed us playback. So that it would match from her perspective to what she saw. And we spent a lot of time on that because that's really a moment that is so important of the film. Like, ooh, was it Scott? Or, oh, was it
Who was
Kamal?
the guy who was there with her on the deck?
That's interesting. Now, obviously, I didn't read the book, so I didn't know anything about the story in regards to what was going to happen, the twists and turns. But you as actors, you do know the ending because you read the script. Are there things you have to do to not give things away? Like, does Tate say, like, you can't move your eyes a certain way, you can't do certain things so you don't give the audience any kind of clues as to what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the thriller aspect was just as important as the development of the characters, and maybe even more so technically speaking, because as an actor you're just existing. But to get the plot right with, for instance, when we were shooting some of the more intimate scenes with Tom. Because I didn't have any love scenes in the film with him, but we wanted, when you see them in the movie, it could be anybody. It could be Kamal, it could be Scott, it could be the coffee man, the newspaper man. I mean, anything. So it was important not to be able to see like to see any of faces. So like with the balcony scene, not to see faces, just to see bodies.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Not to reveal too much because I mean, basically everybody's a suspect. In the film.
Yeah. My mom and I are actually dancing to A Tale as Old as Time at my wedding in 2.5 weeks.
How lovely.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited about it. I'm gonna cry. My mom's gonna cry.
I love that. So you dance with your mom and your wife?
Yeah, so my fiance and I will dance. We're doing like a song from Cruel Intentions and Pulp Fiction, and then we're movie fans, and then
Fantastic.
Mom and I are gonna do Tale as Old as
Oh,
Time.
lovely.
Yeah.
Is she gonna dress up as Mrs. Potts? Or?
She should.
She should.
Any tips from Gaston? Can I have some tips on how to get this? I mean, I know he's not in the scene, but how can I get that dance perfected?
Just get the smile and the eyebrow and get a nice bouffant at the front. And yeah, you need a little sidekick as well.
Okay.
Can't go anywhere without a sidekick.
Right. And kind of going around what happens, obviously, when your character does find out what actually occurs, you know, it's a pretty emotional sequence you have with Emily Blunt's character in the house. And I'm wondering where you have to go emotionally to get there. Like for me, like, you know, I've interviewed you multiple times. You're a super nice guy, and I can't imagine like having to turn that switch on and kind of become that emotional and that deep. Where do you have to go somewhere in your head, like personally? Like how do you do that?
Well, I'm switching on being nice to you. I'm actually really horrible.
Actually,
most
just
of
a
the time,
jerk
so
in real
actually,
life. I knew
there
it.
was no switch.
I knew
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's actually you.
It's actually me. Yeah.
That's actually.
Yeah, this is not me.
This is not you. No, where do you have to go for real? I'm just curious.
Again, I think you have to work that out before you come to set. For me, anyway, I feel like you have to work out that emotional switch when you can switch it on and where you have to go. I don't want to spend my whole day in that place, though, and neither did Emily. So we managed to pull it off when we needed to pull it off, and be back in our own selves during between takes.
Is it that easy? Like, can take
It was
you
this
cut?
time, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we were having a right laugh smashing that sugar bottle against the wall. They only had 4 of them.
Right.
Huge budget, 4 sugar bottles. And first 3, I missed the point. I mean, they obviously gave me like a mark I had to hit, and but I got the last one finally. It was very, very funny though. But yeah, I mean, things like that just break the ice a little bit. You know, you can't stay down in the darkness for too long.
Yeah.
But when you got Emily Blunt sitting opposite you,
She's so funny.
She's so funny.
I know.
And just the nicest person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to take her home.
Yeah.
I didn't want her to go home to her family. I wanted her to come home with my family.
John Krasinski. She's going home with Luke Evans now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good to see you, man. Congratulations to you, man.